have Nathan from SMAX, and I have Gabriel from the Indigenous Network. And now we're talking about the Loss and Damage Fund and climate financing, Gabriel. And we're just asking, as someone representing the Indigenous community, last year, COP27, it was discussed at Sharm el-Sheikh. I mean, that is the other year, you know, Sharm el-Sheikh COP27. We had COP28 that also discussed this. COP27, did anything get to you as the Indigenous communities?
I think the fact is, and we must accept that is, I think this COP, because the meaning of COP is Conference of Parties.
Yes.
I think it has turned to be a conveyor belt. We are just finding ourselves in the same place we have been last year. Like in COP27, the same thing that was achieved, or the outcome of what was agreed, is just the very same thing that was agreed today, last year in COP28. So whatever that is being done, I think the indigenous communities are not involved. The indigenous communities are being left out. And if there are people who bear the ripple effect of climate damage, are the indigenous people. Why? Because it is only the indigenous people who have been able to maintain and to sustain their ecosystem. Like today, if you want to fetch carbon, you just go to where indigenous communities are. And if you see in this discussion of COP28, you cannot be able to find the discussion involving indigenous communities. They are being sidelined. Even the people who are going, the delegations you see going, the indigenous communities are not being involved. And if there are people who have vast experience and who are more understanding on the ecosystem, are the indigenous communities. I was even shocked to see that the government want to find those people who are going to use the indigenous ways to give weather patterns. Like even when you were on our holidays, one of the elders I met, and he could just look at the sky, and he will say, the next 5 days or 3 days, you will experience heavy rains because of the behavior of the sun. And for sure, we experience the rain after 5 days. So there is no discussion about climate change without indigenous people. Indigenous people must be given full, they must be listened, because it is them who understand the effect.
So even as Nathan, as we have this discussion on loss and damages and climate financing on a global scale, let's just bring it down on what you and I need to do in our own individual capacity, while we wait for the international bodies, the NDCs, to sit and decide before that money starts coming down. What is it that our local government, say the county government, our CBOs need to do so that we can start making our own initiatives? Because climate change is not waiting for anyone. Every new day, there is always a new phenomenon. What must we do as we wait for loss and damages?
Okay, so, having said that about COP, I also believe that COP is important because it is a place whereby like-minded organizations meet from different places across the world. It's like a market full of different people, so, and different organizations. So for example, what we can do as different institutions locally, more so the government and the CBOs and the NGOs working around, is that we need to have representations in those COPs so that people can get to learn what other people are doing on the other side of the globe. Because with knowledge, we can be able to exchange technology, we can be able to exchange ideas. And also, apart from that, I mean, there is financing from that aspect in collaborating to do a certain project. Not through the funding way, then it trickles down, just cross NGOs and cross CBOs. So that would be my first idea. Then the second one, mainly as a nation, I believe that we are very young and ambitious people who are willing to work, not to just to talk and be activists that we want climate finance now. I believe that with the local-led solutions, because we have different inventions. For example, the story that you are airing now about people making chicken feed out of, was it Azola?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So those are the solutions that should be promoted as county governments. The county government should tap into what the youths are doing at the local level, finance them using the county kitties. I mean, we should now see a situation whereby we have increased financing for mitigation and adaptation for the programs that we have in several places. More so for the counties in the arid and semi-arid lands, because for them they rely mainly on pastoralism. And when drought hits, it takes away all their herds. For example, last year we lost 5 million herds of livestock. So how could they have another alternative source of livelihood? So for example, in SMACS, what we do, we set up model farms in different schools, because our main target are the young people who are growing up, because we realize that to change the mindset of now the pastoralist is a bit difficult. You can't tell them to shift today from pastoralism to farming. So now you have to work with the curriculum that has been set in place by the government of Kenya through the 4K club in schools. So we set up model farms in schools, and then we are able now to teach them about the different types of farming. First of all, we start with the water harvesting. After water harvesting, we train them on ways of effective usage of water, such as drip irrigation, and so that they can have an alternative source of livelihood. That is now the crop farming. Apart from that, it also benefits the agri-food systems by providing nutritional food.
Gabriel,
Yes.
what must we do on a local level? County governments, NGOs, CBOs, even as we wait for international funding for loss and damages. You as an indigenous community, your small community, your organization as the youth from indigenous communities, what conversations are you having with your people at the grassroots level, telling them about climate change, what we must do, and maybe even shift in how we handle things?
I think what we are doing now, or what should be done, is what we call climate advocacy, community advocacy. We create community resiliency, because first we must make them get aware of this climate change effect. If we have CBOs, we must involve them. We must be able to teach them on how they are going to mitigate on this effect of climate change. Also, we must empower them. We must also start on our own. If it is a matter of planting trees, it should start from the community level. The county government also must also be in a position to make these people, to equip these people with information and also with resources, because I don't really think that we must depend on climate financing from other countries to initiate these ideas. It is something that you can start. So if we get climate funding, it can just be a boost before it can, after we have already prepared ourselves. Also, I think we must also create some kind of understanding between the national government, the county government, and the community. We must really be able to reach to the grassroots level, because even what is being achieved at the national level doesn't really trickle down to the community level. It doesn't go. So it is now a high time that if we want to achieve anything relating to climate change, we must begin at the bottom level. We must empower our people.
And now even at COP28, there was the big conversation on emissions and starting to cut down in emissions, because we are here today because of how much you emitted into the atmosphere. And therefore, as we have this discussion, I know it was there are countries that are having these these discussions on issues to do with issues basically to do with emissions. What must we do as a country to sort that out?
So again, I can say that this was the first COP that we did our stock taking. So like all throughout since the Paris Agreement, we have never done a stock taking of like how far we are and what have we done to this place. And if you see, what we are trying to do is to limit the 1.5 degrees Celsius global warming to that 1.5. I mean, when you look at what we are doing in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, is that we are not yet there, according to the stake talking that was done. And so what we should do as a country is to robustly improve the tree planting, and also not just tree planting, but tree growing. Because you find that most of the exercise that we do are just for ceremonial purposes. I mean, if we can go back to and look at the trees that we planted a year ago, how far are they?
Yeah.
I mean, instead of just planting trees for the sake of planting, can we just have a look and say, okay, well, mangrove takes more carbon compared to other trees. It is the best carbon sequestration tree rather than other trees. So can we boost planting of mangrove? I mean, we need to have knowledge and also to do capacity building for people across the divide. Another thing is that we should involve everyone across the sector. Sometimes you find people with captions such as, those are people in the climate sector. I mean, we don't have specific people to be in the climate sector. It is a crisis that's affecting all of us, and we need to be knowledgeable about it. We need to make people aware of the same, that it is affecting you, it's affecting me, and it's affecting everyone, here and globally. So it's a conversation that we should have across the divide, from the young to the old.
Gabriel, when we talk about emissions now, it is basically moving from fossil fuels to going to green energy. I mean, in Kenya, today the sun is super hot. How are we taking advantage of this resource that we have in terms of going solar and lowering, just going green? In Kenya, we appreciate the fact that 95% of electricity we use is already green because it's hydropower. But how do we also take advantage of other resources that we have, say, solar, we have wind, how do we take advantage of that? And what conversation should we have with those that produce these things in terms of, while we are now looking to trade on carbon credits, maybe it's about time we also started having discussions on subsidized ways of getting solar storage, solar panels, and wind energy.
First of all, one of the deliberations or the outcomes of COP28, part of global stocktake, was what we call fossil fuel, transition from fossil fuel to renewable energy. And I think if you really look at it, it was just a story. Because most of the northern countries are not ready to embrace this idea of transitioning from fossil fuel energy to renewable energy. But here in Kenya, we must appreciate the fact that we are making some kind of strides or level of transitioning from fossil fuel to renewable energy. For example, we have Lake Turkana wind power, which is doing a lot in matters energy, and we must really take that route. Also, we saw the head of state the other day launching electric motorbikes.
Yes.
We've seen electric cars around, because even the cost of fuel is going high. So even without involving this issue of climate change, people are even admiring this aspect of the transitioning to renewable energy. Also, I think what we are not really working on is how we can tap this energy that is going waste, the solar energy. How we can tap it and make use of it. We have seen the other day, we have seen in Mombasa, people are frying eggs using some kind of energy. Even now, people are using the solar, of which is not effective, but we can invest on how we can be able to tap high voltage of energy from the solar. The big challenge we have now on the matter of fossil fuel, or the matter of oil, is the issue of these big machines. Like where agriculture is being done, I think there's a challenge, because we have not been able to invent the machine power that can be able to conduct agricultural activities that can go in the long run. And it is only that a matter that we have not been majorly, we haven't measured on that. Because if we have electricity here that can run the whole system or the whole country, and it is using water, what is it hard that you cannot be able to invent a machine that uses electricity that can be able to do agricultural activities and reduce this amount of fuel? Also, We have these long distance vehicles that moves from Kenya, Tanzania. I don't know if we can be able to also invent the kind of voltage, electricity that can use, now we can invent vehicles of such nature that can be able to use, because if you see them walking around, you see the kind of dust, the kind of smoke they emit. I think it is that also the challenge. Also, last but not least, when we fully transit into that path, most of the countries, maybe in the Middle East, we run broke, will run out of the market. So it is a competitive, there is a lot of interest in the fossil fuel. So I think this one surpasses us, but as a country, we can initiate our own, adopt our own mechanism. Thank you.
And Gabriel, you said a lot in terms of electric high-capacity vehicles and all that. And I know in other jurisdictions, especially in the United States, I know they have semi-trucks that run on electricity. It's all about infrastructure. Maybe that's a discussion that we need to have in terms of having the same infrastructure in Africa and building capacity. It's all about building capacity, because today, an electric vehicle in this country, you know, the one that the president had during SES, it's around 1.7 million. How many people can afford that? Plus, also there is the prestige issue. I want to cruise in my V8. How will you tell me to buy a small thing at 1.7 million? So it's all about education and also just intentional infrastructure being built in Africa. But now let's look at looking forward and moving forward. What must we do together? Today we're talking about lowering emissions, talking about protecting our water towers, but on a personal level, in your house, what are some of the things that we can all do, play our own role to be able to just contribute to this fight on climate change? As the young people, I mean, we are here longer than everyone else.
In our foundation, at the offices, we have a policy. We don't use plastic bottles. Everyone has just one water bottle that you recycle daily. I mean, that's one of the key steps that we took as a foundation. We are also urging people in the local communities, for example, when we go to different places in the arid and semi-arid lands where we work mostly, is more on the water conservation issue, more on the water harvesting, and also like having innovative ways of recycling the water that you use. There's no need for you to use the water to wash your utensils, then you just pour it away. Kindly use it in your garden. Just the same as in urban areas, whereby we have the water from the sink, then you have a backyard space. So what we do is that we are now training people on how to come up with the kitchen gardens, the urban multi-story gardens, whereby you just need a small space, a 1 by 1 meter square. You have your garden there where you can recycle your water, you can get your vegetables from there. That goes a long way in not only cutting short of the water that we use, but also in terms of reducing the amount of money you spend on acquiring food produces from the countryside. Because if you look at the whole agri-food system, right from production up to consumption and value addition, the main part that leads to emission is the transportation, the logistics, because the tomatoes that you buy from the market were transported all the way from somewhere in Muranga or all the way from Nyeri. So, I mean, if you are able to produce your own, then you are able to cut down on the emissions for transporting those 2 or 3 pieces. The other issue is on the farms. Instead of using electricity for pumping water, can we transit to solar, use of solar? So we can tap into renewable energy and solar, and more on climate smart agriculture.
Briefly, Gabriel, what are some of the initiatives we must put in place in a minute, sir?
The initiative we must put in place at the moment is also we must ban the plastic, use of plastic. We've seen sometimes the NEMA came in and initiate, and it really worked. Another thing you must do at the moment is safeguarding the riparian lands. There's intrusion of riparian lands, especially in the urban centers, even in the rural areas. So there's a lot we need to do in protecting riparian lands. Yeah.
Gabriel Musuni from the Indigenous Youth Network, and I have Nathan Ngetich from SMACS, young people putting initiatives forward, making sure that we all play our part in making sure that we preserve this place we call home. Little initiatives, but which go a long